Okay, so let's talk about your lifestyle and how you created. How did you get into the U.S.-China? What did you call it? The
China-U.S. trade.
China-U.S. trade.
Well, let me maybe back into that question and say that what I drew up there on that Venn diagram, the short way of teaching it is a way to directly apply my interest to game and bring that into conversation and build attraction with girls and establish commonalities. But the sort of meta game, life game, is those things actually comprise my lifestyle. Some people that are younger, have different experience, or in a job they may not like, or stuck in a tough school environment, they may be filling in stuff in this diagram that they want to do, or that they're planning to, or that they're dreaming of. It may not be their exact reality at that time. Lifestyle game, in my opinion, is having your actual life be congruent and merge with the things that are most interest you and incite the most passion. And these things change over time as well, right? As we get older, our tastes change, interests change. So what I drew up there is actually representative of how I spend a large part of my time. And so, backing into what you were asking, how did I get into China USA Traders, was it really does go back to that first unexpected trip to China, which launched me into studying Chinese language, which then led me into having enough connections to raise some money and start a business. I used to have a company that sold custom USB flash drives that were manufactured in South China and sold wholesale to customers in the US, which was fun and a decent way to make money, but it also provided sort of a Trojan horse to elaborate my interest in Chinese language and business by virtue of actually doing it, right? It became my life that I was dealing with people in China. I was working with sourcing agents, whether it's over Skype with a 15-hour time difference, or actually arriving and going out to dinner with factory managers and building Guanxi for real. So that experience, which was my first foray into China-US business, I eventually sold that company. And then I said, okay, there has to be a systemized way. There has to be something that I can extract from that specific experience and elaborate to a general. So one of the things I was talking about with David is I actually recently finished a book that I authored called The Entrepreneur's Guidebook, a comprehensive guide to launching and growing an online China to US products business, which is my way of translating a firsthand experience that I had, which was in and of itself a lifestyle pursuit, into sort of the next level up of abstraction. Is how can I create a system that helps other people go through that process I went through with as few obstacles and roadblocks along the way. And that book preceded the consulting company I have, which is China USA Traders.
Right. Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
So now you're actually a full-time student, right? Are you?
Technically,
right.
Yeah.
But you're also running.
I managed to do other things as well.
Businesses. Yeah.
Which can be tricky, but.
Yeah. One thing I was looking into, and then I got sidetracked with this business, was required sourcing agents in China. And I remember last year we had a little discussion, and you recommending I find a sourcing agent, which I did, and they really helped out a huge, arranging a drop shipping arrangement with me in the factory. Yeah, it was all set up. They had the specs for all the products I wanted to make. It was all ready to go. And then it was the last minute, I realized I needed certain immigration papers to continue to actually run this company. So I had to put all the paid up capital into this. And then once this is pretty much ready to go, so now I can transfer that and get that started up again.
Nice.
Hopefully that factory has not disappeared. But I just get back in touch with the sourcing agents.
Others have sprouted up in its place.
Yeah, it was cool because the sourcing agent said, I will put together proposals from the different factories. I'm thinking, you can do that? Cool. And then instead of just paying an upfront fee, which I didn't do, which is probably why I could drop it so easily, we arranged a commission for her off of whatever I sell. So
I can't wait to get your feedback on this book because it basically describes the exact process that it sounds like you've gone through.
Yeah, I'm sure if I had seen that earlier, it would have saved me a lot of headache. With that recommendation, I got in touch with some other guys who had worked in China. So
It is.
yeah, so they're
Happy to give you guys a look and whatnot. Ta-da. That's my book.
Okay.
yeah. So along those lines, books that maybe you've heard of before, Timothy Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek. It's been very inspirational to me. I don't know if
Yeah. So basically, if I were to give a 30-second talk on my book, it's a combination of Tim Ferriss's sort of lifestyle inspired business, where my goal is always to have a business that works for me instead of working for my business, which is a subset of my goal to not work for anybody. I guess not even for myself on my own company. So my whole approach to business, which I think is reflected in this, is setting up a situation with my sourcing agents and other people where it's systems-based instead of people-based. Because when it's people-based, if you're the founder, the buck stops at you, and all problems, especially the worst ones, bubble up and become your responsibility. Mm-hmm. So try and avoid that by design. Each go around that I take with this entrepreneurial road.
Right.
And sounds like you have the same motivations.
Well, let's pause there. So before I just continue to monopolize this time, we got about 15 minutes left for you to ask any questions about anything we've talked about at all. Where can they get that book?
Yeah, I'll just write it on the board while we're doing questions and stuff. It's just outsourcetochinaonline.com.
You have a Facebook page, right?
Oh yeah, I do for that. It's facebook.com/outsource.to.china.
Okay.
We might have used a permanent marker on that.
Is that the right marker?
But I can walk and chew gum at the same time. So if you guys have any questions or whatnot, fire away.
So how many of you have not moved out of your mom's home because you need money?
Sorry?
How many of you have not moved out of your mom's home because you need money?
Oh, not to need money, but to sustain the lifestyle.
Okay, right. So how many of you? It's who does not lack money and is just living with mom because mom won't let him leave?
Well, I'm kind of trying to get a place.
Oh yeah, you're buying. Okay, and you're okay.
Just that I'm comfortable, yeah, but no choice.
Okay, so
but I can move up. I reckon if I wanted to.
Okay, because I was going. The follow-up question is,
What happened?
could you use some extra money?
Yes, of course.
Could you use some extra? Okay, would you like to make some extra money without working in a regular job where you have to show up in an office 9 to 5?
Yeah, sure.
Would you like a job where you? Would you like to make some money by putting in 4 to 10 hours a week once it gets going from your computer?
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, on the topic of lifestyle and stuff, that is sort of the dream, right? It takes some effort to get up to that stage. In my experience,
Right.
A few months,
Getting started.
2 to 6 months, depending on what product it is and so forth. But it's definitely within reach. And I mean, one of the things in my book sort of maps out the economics, at least between China and the U.S. It's like $350 billion of goods a year flows from China into the U.S. It's just staggering.
Yeah.
Right? It's become such a huge part of every good that almost everything in this room you could find a made in China stamp on it somewhere.
Yeah, I think China is one of the largest trading partners with Singapore, if not the largest.
I would believe that.
This was a realization.
What's that?
Okay, so given that reality for all of you, and now that the author of this book is actually here, do you have any questions?
I think with any business idea, it's always the initial challenge with capital.
Okay, let's ask about it. How much capital would you need?
And how do you
ballpark.
source for it? For example, even if you do have a good idea, how do you get people to put money in? Yeah.
From my experience, I've gotten really good at building websites on the cheap. So for example, with a custom USB flash drive company, I got from concept and money in hand to launched and leads coming in the door in 45 days. I worked pretty hard to get that going, but it cost me all of $3,000 to $4,000. Not very much. I talk a lot in there, if you guys have heard of things like elance.com or Odesk, sort of these online platforms for talent brokerage. So you can put up a request like need a web developer to build an e-commerce enabled site here, and then you give them a couple sketches and outline the ideas and reference 3 to 4 other sites that are similar to the one that you want to build. And I think the going rate now is somewhere between $1,200 and $2,000 for a turnkey site with content management system and customer relationship management software built in. And it's sort of surprising what's possible with the internet economy.
I can hook you up with a company that will do it for $800. Like a very simple site with a payment shopping cart and a gateway.
So I'd say conservatively, $7,500 to $12,000 would get you through your first couple sales, so all the way into being in business. If you wanted to be a little bit more on the low-cost side, you could get something up and going for $5,000 or less.
Okay.
The variables are, of course, if you take a trip to China and visit factories and stuff, do you count those costs as part of your startup, or is that, it's all about, so if you're talking about lifestyle, one of the reasons why I still teach game and that I'm an instructor is that this stuff pays my travel and living expenses. And that's no joke. I was very close to leaving the company last year and just staying full-time in school and doing my own business pursuits, but it's almost too good of a deal to pass up. I mean, I got flown out here to Singapore. I've met some of my best friends through teaching workshops. Some of them are students. Some of them are students that become instructors. Some of them are the other instructor team. Mark was a former instructor for our company. And I'd more or less, just live with him. And it's not like a burden because we're really good friends. And we have a lot in common, genuinely. So lifestyle, my approach to it is I trade 3 days of my life doing something that gives me personal thrill, like seeing guys improve and going out and doing these boot camps and workshops. And after that 3-day commitment is over, here I am. Now I'm in Singapore, right? Otherwise, I would have spent $1,500 or so to get over here, and then hundreds more on hotels if I didn't know anybody and if I didn't try and overlap these different aspects of my life. So that's why I say it is variable. Depending on if you have friends or family in Hong Kong or South China, you can lower your startup costs dramatically by taking advantage of all of the relationships and connections you have in place. An example of Guanxi in action. If you have other means, if you're a doctor or something else, a little bit of creativity can go a long way in making your life kick ass, right? Can you do a Doctors Without Borders stint? I don't know, I met somebody that did this. So then Doctors Without Borders, okay, they get you over to a new place. You're doing your medical work for X amount of time a day, sacrifice a couple hours of sleep. Now you're on the ground in a different country. What can you make happen there on the business front? Can you go out to clubs? Are you man enough to go out by yourself and do cold approach? Can you make something happen on the relationship and love life front? These are the aspects of lifestyle game that goes beyond just conversation and how to approach and how to get girls into bed into how do you integrate the interests in your life in a literal way where they start to overlap in some fashion. So, for example, after I leave, starting next month, I'll be in Taiwan. My school is subsidizing 6 weeks of my living cost. I get to study Chinese, which I'm genuinely interested in, but that's only from 9 a.m. until noon every day. And then let's say there's 2 hours of homework. Great. I'm awake 14 to 15 hours a day. I've got 8 hours a day of free time times 6 weeks with weekends off to explore business contacts, meeting lots of new girlfriends, building relationship with professors, meeting business leaders, maybe the guys at American Institute of Taiwan, and doing some diplomatic investigation stuff. All these things become available through the filter of one interest in my life, which is academics and Chinese language. You see how that works? So the extent that you guys are serious about this stuff is putting on putting on your creativity cap and thinking, where can I carve out extra time? And where can I overlap living costs and travel costs? And how can I get somebody else or some other company or institution to subsidize them so that I can explore and elaborate these interests that I have? And it's just funny. Like 4 years ago, I was an investment banker. I was working pretty hard, and I was making a lot more money than I am now. But I'm actually doing more now with a lot less because I've gotten so creative. I don't mean to say that like I'm patting myself on the back. Some of it's been out of necessity, of just being ruthless with cutting costs. And, I bought Mark a nice bottle of liquor and a few other gifts, but the actual out-of-pocket cost to give him a few $100s of nice presents, the trade-off is 2 weeks in a condo with a pool, a sauna, a gym, and a beautiful view. Is that good for my relationship life? You can ask the girl I brought home last night. I would argue yes. So, like the overlapping Venn diagram circle stuff is more than just a figurative example. There really is overlap in these areas of my life. And I do try and spend as much time in that center circle as possible. Does that make sense? It's like I could actually thinking of doing like a whole different type of seminar and just building lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because it's so crucial. And this is the thing I find. When you're going down that path, like when you make a concrete decision to pursue one of your interests, it changes other things in your life. You have a different energy that you bring to the interactions. If it's just a subtext, right? The fact that I'm here in Singapore, I have a different outlook on life than if I was back in Berkeley and I'm out at a bar there on semester break. It would be a lot less interesting and exciting than going out here in the night of the week just because I'm here. So it's an underlying aspect that I think supports my game, if that's what this is about, right?
Yeah. Any last questions? You can take a couple more. Or one
How old are you?
My question.
How old do I look?
30?
Close, yeah. I'm 29 and a half.
Well, when did you start with Love Systems?
Late 2008.
Oh, with Rockstar.
Yeah.
Project Rockstar.
So really, I signed papers in January 2009. 2009, 10. So I've been with the company 2.5 years.
So you started Project Rockstar when you were 26.
Yeah, and I felt like I was the old guy. I was the second oldest guy. There was 21, 22-year-old, 23-year-old, and then me, and then a 27-year-old. I felt like I was on the older end, but I swear, from that and then incorporating my interests in my life and sacrificing more material wealth for more, dare say, like spiritual wealth, I actually feel younger now than I did 3 years ago. Go figure. But I honestly and truly believe that if you're waking up every day, like excited to be doing what you're doing and following your interests and willing to take the lumps and the obstacles along the way, that age becomes immaterial. And that's been my experience, and I hope it continues. Because I'm not going to get any younger in terms of actual years.
Do you have a follow-up? Was there a reason you asked that question?
How old are you?
I'm 24.
You got your whole life ahead of you.
I'm just trying to...
If you took
picture
5% of the stuff we've talked about here and applied it, you'll be kicking ass in 2 years. Question is, are you going to do it? You shouldn't have to think too long on that one.
Yeah, right.